Let's get right into it. What happened to Minnesota wasn't just a simple fraud problem. We're talking about hundreds of fake businesses, hundreds of millions of dollars stolen, and leaders who were apparently warned in writing and did nothing. This is really a story of how a system can completely fail right out in the open.
This one state, Minnesota, became the absolute epicenter of a massive, massive scandal. It involved a huge amount of federal money that was supposed to help people during the pandemic, but, well, it ended up lining the pockets of criminals instead.
And the scale of this is just staggering. We are talking about over $250 million. And you have to remember, this wasn't just some general fund. This money was specifically meant to feed children who were stuck at home during COVID. And it was just stolen.
The sheer audacity of this scheme is what's so stunning. Investigators found single addresses, just one building, being used to register hundreds of different companies, all of them getting government funding, all of them billing for insane amounts of federal money. It's almost hard to believe.
So here's the crucial thing to understand. This was not an isolated mistake. It wasn't one bad actor slipping through the cracks. No, the federal investigators are now looking at this as a systemic pattern, a pattern of fraud, of warnings being ignored, and of money just flowing exactly where it should never have gone.
And because that pattern is so glaringly obvious, Washington is now getting involved. House Republicans have confirmed there is a formal oversight investigation underway. And they're asking the big question: how are these massive schemes allowed to operate for so long right in plain sight?
But, before we get into all the unanswered questions, let's ground this in what we know for a fact. Let's talk about the one specific case that's already gone through the federal court system, the Feeding Our Future scandal.
Now, let me be crystal clear here. These are not just allegations. Federal courts have already handed down multiple convictions for wire fraud and other crimes. This is officially one of the largest pandemic-era fraud cases in American history. These are undisputed, court-proven facts. Okay, but this is where the story takes a really critical turn. It's not just that the fraud happened. It's that it seems like it could have been stopped. The evidence suggests that for years, people were sounding the alarm.
We have court filings and testimony that show, years earlier, whistleblowers came forward. They were flagging suspicious billing, pointing out fake businesses, and they delivered these warnings directly to state agencies, the governor's office and the attorney general's office. And what happened? Nothing. For years, the money just kept flowing.
And think about how simple this would have been to fix. All it would have taken was the most basic level of oversight, someone to physically visit an address, a knock on the door, a simple review of their operations. But apparently, that didn't happen. And because it didn't, billions of taxpayer dollars just vanished into thin air.
And get this, when federal investigators finally did start closing in, something else happened. They were met with resistance. Crowds actually formed, with some activists claiming the investigation was some kind of political attack, trying to shift the entire narrative away from accountability and turn it into outrage at the investigators themselves.
Yeah, well, that resistance didn't work. The investigation didn't stop. In fact, it expanded. And now, today, Washington is asking a whole new set of questions based on everything that was uncovered.
This right here is the central question federal lawmakers are trying to answer. It's not just about the criminals who stole the money anymore. It's about the system that let them get away with it. How did the checks and balances, the basic safety nets, fail so completely?
So, as part of that oversight, it's pretty standard procedure. Lawmakers have publicly confirmed they are now examining the financial disclosures of Minnesota's leadership during that entire period. This is what happens in any serious financial investigation.
Now, it is absolutely crucial to be clear here. This slide is about the questions being asked, not conclusions that have been reached. Lawmakers are officially inquiring about the financial disclosures of public figures. That includes questions about the household net worth of Representative Ilhan Omar during this time. Again, to be perfectly clear, these are inquiries, part of an ongoing investigation. They are not accusations of guilt. The financial records are simply under review.
But here's why this Minnesota story is so important to everyone, no matter where you live. It's because it's not just about Minnesota. It's a blueprint. It's a pattern that we've seen play out in other states all across the country.
You can see it right here. California lost tens of billions of dollars. Audits are now expanding in places like Ohio and New York. They're all different states, but it's a very, very similar story. Massive amounts of federal money coming in, meeting minimal oversight on the way out.
And this is the blueprint. It's brutally simple, really. Step 1, a huge, sudden flood of federal cash. Step 2, weak or in some cases non-existent state and local oversight. And Step 3, well, taxpayers are left holding the bag while the people who actually needed the help get nothing.
So the most important point is this. This money doesn't belong to politicians. It doesn't belong to government agencies. It belongs to the taxpayers who work hard to earn it. It was meant to help citizens, not to be some kind of blank check for fraud.
And that leaves us with the ultimate question, not just for Minnesota, but for the entire country. Yeah, convicting the criminals who stole the money, that's one thing. But when the system itself fails on a scale this massive, who is ultimately held accountable for that? That is the question that still needs an answer.